grazie per l'invitazione di Allianza delle Cooperative Italiane. Sono contenta di essere qui. Non posso parlare in italiano per tutta la presentazione, però volevo dire un'introduzione in italiano. Adesso in inglese. I want to go maybe back a step, and I want to remind us where answering the question that the President has asked of the session, where are cooperatives in the sustainable development story? And with Rio +20, we had 3 mentions of cooperatives in the United Nations texts. With the current documents we have at hand from the open working group with the 17 goals that Mr. Ridolfi was just mentioning, there is no mention. No mention in the goals, no mention in the 169 targets, no mention in the more than 300 indicators. We have less than 12 months. How do we change that? So I will attempt to put some ideas out there on what could be done, where are we at and what could be done. Clearly, as all our speakers said, cooperatives are all in all the sectors. And when we look at the 8 Millennium Development Goals that are going to come to an end in another year, we see cooperatives have been active in many of them. Health cooperatives in addressing child and maternal mortality, even HIV/AIDS, Mr. Ridolfo, because in Africa there are a lot of, for instance, social cooperatives, cooperatives of to take care of orphans, HIV/AIDS orphans, and financial cooperatives in East Africa and Southern Africa. The burial societies, which are very much, you know, principles on cooperative principles. So we can actually go through each of the MDGs and tell a story of how cooperatives have contributed to them. But they did not receive any funding for it, hardly any funding for it from this large machinery of the UN. And the question is, as the Sustainable Development Goals, as the new system is coming into place, is there a way we can bring co-ops back into the picture? Is it going? Am I moving? No. Come posso muovere così? Non voglio muovere. No. Ok. Sì. Oh. Dietro, grazie. So what are we talking about when we are moving to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals? The 8 goals did not have enough on economic, did not have enough on environment. So the new goals are supposed to bring some of those in, like energy, which was mentioned both by Rodrigo and Mr. Ridolfi, like economic growth and decent work, like inequality, housing, all different dimensions, as Mr. Lucetti said, of poverty, the multidimensionality of poverty, sustainable consumption and production. For instance, let's just choose this one. How are cooperatives actively engaged in this proposed goal? We have cooperatives that are both producer cooperatives and consumer cooperatives, having a shorter, fairer, and at the same time competitive chain of production could very well be constructed through a cooperative system. Is this in the picture? No. How do we put it in the picture? We have countries like yourself, Italy, which have an amazing dynamic cooperative sector. It creates jobs, 300,000. Ms. Sabatini was just telling me, in just the social cooperative sector. So you can be a champion country in the UN system in New York. We so far have one champion, it's Mongolia. Mongolia, it's very nice that, you know, they are supporting cooperatives and bringing cooperatives. But, you know, perhaps Italy would have a little bit more weight, especially with the EU presidency, especially with your also track record of cooperatives, you would be much more credible. Unfortunately, between what is said here and what is then promoted as priority in New York, there is a disconnect, and we need that connection. I don't know how that message goes from here to there, but it's something that the Italian civil society, cooperative movement will need to get that message to your, I think, foreign ministry. What else can I say? So these are the 17 goals. Some of them are the old goals, like, of course, attaining gender equality. Some are the new ones. And one idea I'd like to propose is we could go through every one of the goals and say how co-ops are doing well in each one. Or we could prioritize. How do we prioritize? We could say in Italy, based on our experience, these are the 6 goals we think are critical to achieve an effective means of implementation, like Mr. Lucetti said, require cooperative intervention. We could say that. We could say co-ops need to be a part of the toolkit for achieving 6, 8, 10, and for each country it might be different. If we don't want to say co-ops are contributing to all 17, and that's like a big, very long story to try to say. I want to just reflect a little bit. I mean, the UN has a system and a process in coming to these 17 goals. Many thematic discussions, many national, regional, international discussions. And of course, the government, civil society, organizations like mine, for instance, ILO is about social justice, decent work, so we promoted decent work to be in the goals. It's there now. We are happy about that. But we don't know once it's being consolidated if it'll still be there, but we are working on it. Cooperatives, on the other hand, have not been very present and very active in these international, regional debates. We have, for instance, sectors of cooperatives, ICMIF, the International Cooperative Mutual Insurance Federation. They said they are very active. They came once and they said, when we interviewed them, they said, yes, we are talking about sustainable development. We said, oh, great, what about climate change? We said, oh, great, are you talking about cooperatives' role in influencing climate change? They said, no, 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 we are talking about climate change. But, you know, you are a cooperative. You're working for climate change. You should make a case for cooperatives. So there was a missing link there. I want to just refer to the paper that Mr. Ridolfi was showing earlier. You have, it's a brief version. The full paper, the full report is available online from ILO and ICA websites. What we did with this report was to try to go through the goals and say how are cooperatives contributing to each of the proposed goals. And we also tried to see yes, how do cooperatives see themselves in the picture of these goals. So we did literature review and survey. So I want to say, highlights, I'll give you some of the highlights. Our starting point was cooperatives must have something to contribute to sustainable development. They are working for economic progress, they have social goals, sometimes they work also for the environment, they have these good governance principles, so they must be contributing in some way. And of course, when we look at the concern for community, which is the principle 7 of the cooperative principles, and we unpack that, labor is in there, social is in there, environment is in there. So we thought this should be the case. And we went through each and every one of the areas. I don't want to go over them because we had examples. But for instance, for poverty reduction, of course, a cooperative is an enterprise. It generates income. It also creates employment. And it provides a range of often services to its members. So it serves clearly poverty reduction goals. And from the paper, you can see some of the different goals, from health to gender equality to education. Energy, water, etc., nutrition. I'm not going to go through them all. But what I want to emphasize is, bear with me, to question why the co-ops have not been actively involved in this debate. Why? We could say they focus more on the local level. They are more concerned with the grassroots, and that's where their energies, members, etc., that's where their energies are. That's one hypothesis. They didn't know so much about all the sustainable development goal talk, because it is a lot of talk, jargon. There is a lot at stake, so it's not just jargon we can ignore. Unfortunately, we can't. We have to engage in it and navigate in it, because that's where government policies, development funds are going to go. So we can't quite. Sometimes it seems that they didn't feel like they knew what was going on, so they were shy to go in, and they did not participate. So the paper has some recommendations for governments recognizing co-ops, co-ops talking more to the governments, to UN, to influence the process, etc. But what was interesting is we talked to around 300 co-op leaders and said, okay, if you were to tell us about what you've really achieved in terms of your contribution to Millennium Development Goals, and what you really think you can achieve, what would you prioritize? And I want to share these with you. They are not representative. It's online survey, so somebody is interested and fills it. So it's self-selection. But there are some interesting insights that I'd like to share with you. One is, when we asked them, where did you make your most contributions? Oh, I'm stuck again. Okay, here we go. They said developing a global partnership for development. This was goal 8 in the MDGs, and it's goal 17 in the SDGs. This is interesting, and I propose here today that we actually don't spread ourselves too thin to all the 17 goals. Time is running out. If we are going to focus on one goal, one thing, we should focus on this last goal, which is about effective means of implementation for the goals. So it's talking about co-ops as a platform, as a way to reach all the goals, and that cooperatives have to be a part of the toolkit, because the MDGs are emphasizing the toolkit. A toolkit of policy, program, institutions, regulations, that cooperatives should be in that toolkit. So we may not have made it to the goals, the targets, the indicators, but we make it to the toolkit, and we make it to the means of implementation. Because in all this talk and in the critique of MDGs is telling us we did not focus enough on means of implementation. And I think if we could get with Italy as a champion for co-ops into this process, if we could say co-op has to be in the toolkit for effective means of implementation of the SDGs, we might have a chance. So I think I'm going to stop there. Yeah, there's other stuff, but, oh no, there's one more. Oh, thank you. Good timing. No, I want to say one more thing that may be interesting, but maybe you're already, oh, doesn't want to move anymore. Oh, here. Nope, go back. Okay, no. I'm just going to say it. Don't look at the slide. I'm just going to say it. So when we ask these 300 cooperatives, what do you think is going to be where do you think you can contribute most in the SDGs? They said ending poverty, creating jobs, ensuring food security, quality education, good governance, and women's empowerment. They didn't say anything about energy. They didn't say anything about climate change. Doesn't mean that co-ops don't care about these, but the 300 that responded to us said these were their priorities. So I leave you with that. Thank you.